Hi, welcome back to Legal Quilts. It has been a minute, hasn't it? Things happened. I got my second shingle shot and that kind of wiped me out for a day. Couldn't really move my arm, which meant quilting was kind of out. So that's why we missed one completely. Then you got the silent video because I had some family stuff I had to do and didn't have the space, the time, or anything with me in order to shoot a video. So you got the silent one again. Apparently you get a silent one a year. But now we're back. Everything's all good. It's all okay. Shingle shot. If you're over 50, talk to your doctor, whether you've had chickenpox or not. You do not want to get shingles. Okay? So what we're going to do today is we're putting the borders on this quilt. The reindeer one that we put the Bargello blocks on. Dropping things all over the place. I decided I wanted to go with a dark pattern, a dark background snowflake pattern to kind of set the lighter blocks in, and also to go with the darker parts of the panel. I've gotten comments about, you talk too much, just get to sewing. Here's the thing. Color choices are really important. If you don't make good color choices, I'm not going to say the right ones, but good color choices, your quilt's not going to look as good. It's still going to be functional. It's still going to be a quilt and all of that. It's just not going to look as good as you want it to. So you want to think about choices and why you're choosing a fabric. Scrap quilts are something different. They're supposed to look chaotic and lots of colors and everything. But even there you want something that goes together. You don't want, maybe you do want screaming neons, but you want something that kind of offsets them a little bit so that you can look at the quilt without being lost in it. And in this one, we want the theme of snowflakes. So that's why my border fabric had to have snowflakes in it. So then I had to think about what size I wanted the border fabric to be, the borders I wanted them to be. These are 2.5-inch blocks. I didn't want the border to be up to 2 inches. I didn't want a 2-inch border because then it would just look like a continuance of this. So I went with a little larger. I cut these 3.5, so it'll be a 3-inch border. So it's a little larger than the blocks. You could go smaller and go with a narrower one. But again, I didn't really want to go with the same one to kind of offset the border from the blocks themselves. And that's a consideration too when you're deciding what do you want to do with your border. You want a pattern that's going to complement what you've got, but also if not blend in too much. Sometimes you do, but you want to make conscious choices of what you're doing, okay? So I just cut 3.5-inch strips and sewed them all into one long line. Now I did an episode on borders before, but I kind of messed up some words. So we're going to do that again. One, so that hopefully I don't mess it up this time. And to make it a little easier to understand. Plus I wanted to talk about that, a little bit about the borders. So how do you measure your borders and how do you know how long of a strip to cut for each one? Now you already know that I like to do my strips, my borders, short along the top and bottom, and then longer on the sides. That draws the eyes into an up and down thing, okay? So we're going to do the top first. And how you do that is you hold up your quilt. So if you've got what you want to be the top of your quilt or what you've decided is the top of your quilt, if there's no pattern, just pick one to be the top, okay? And you fold it in half so that the right side, which will look like left because I have this all flipped for you, and the left side, which is the right to what you guys are looking at, bring those corners together, your left and right corners together, so that you've basically folded your quilt in half, okay? You folded the top in half, where you want your top border to be in half. See? Okay? And you measure that. I mean, you could lay the whole thing out, but it's easier on a 36-inch measuring cutting mat to do it in half. So that's right about 32. So full length would be 64, okay? I'm going to set this aside for the moment, and we're going to take, we're done with that. We're going to take our long strip, and we're going to measure out 64 inches, okay? Leave your top folded in half for a reason, okay? Measure out 64. I'm going to do this in different lengths. I'm going to go 20, 20 again for 40, and then 10 for 50, and then 16, or 14, sorry, it's 64. 64. Oh, that's what I did wrong. Okay. For 64. You'll notice this is a lot like how I did it for the temperature quilt, and that's just because it's a lot easier to measure it out in parts along your cutting mat than trying to figure out and move your mat, trying to lay it out somewhere and get 64 inches to cut. So just go ahead and cut on the 64-inch line. Well, the 14 here. The other reason I didn't do 20, 20, 20, and then 4 is because my 4 is all the way over here, and I'd be trying to cut here and hope that this doesn't all fall out. It's just easier for me to move it. You might do it however it lays out best for you. That's how I like to do it. And you just cut. There we go. Out of practice being out of town. Okay, so that's your top piece, all right? And then you take this and you also fold it in half, okay? And leave that folded in half, all right? Fold it in half, fold it in half. Now you take your quilt that you also folded in half. Oops. There we go. Okay. Fold it in half. Won't quite come on a line there. It shifted when I moved it. All right, but you fold it in half. Fold it in half again with your right side out. This will make this a lot easier. Okay? What you're gonna do, okay, I should have done that one. Okay, so you've got it folded right side out. Lay that down on your quilt. Sorry, I should have done this one. Fold your half right side out, okay? And here's why. Right? Fold it in half. Fold it in half. See, even when I try to do it without making mistakes, I'm making mistakes. But these are correctable ones. These are easy ones. Okay? And you match up your, see where it's folded in half and folded in half? Match that right up. Okay? Except you're going to do this right sides together. And flip that over like that. So you've got your half and your half full, where your half was and your halfway mark on your quilt was, and the halfway mark on that. And look, when you flipped it over like that, your right side was on the inside and you have right sides together. Okay? So that's an easy way to find your centers and match them up. Just keep them folded in half. Then you're just going to pin your quilt, pin the top to pin your border to the top. I'm sorry. Well, clip. Pins, clips, whatever you use. I prefer clips because you can see them. You're less likely to get stabbed. And because you can see them, you're more likely to remove them while you're sewing, so you're not going to hit your sewing needle, which is bad. Because then you hear that and you've broken a needle on your sewing machine. Pieces of your pin might fall into the sewing machine, then you got to go fish them out. You might do even more damage to your sewing machine than just break a needle if you do that. So that's why I prefer clips. And you just keep going down to the end, okay? Just keep going down to the end, all right? Come on. Okay. You just keep pinning. All right, can you see me pinning? There we go. Pin that end one right there really quick. All right. I probably put my pins my clips a little too close together. Just need one more. Wait until I do pillowcases. Maybe that's what I'll do next time. Okay. And then you do the same thing on the other half. All right. Got it pinned. All right. You do the same thing on the other half. Just pin. All right. I'm going to try not to have them too close together this time. You want enough on there that it stays together, but also not so many that it stays in place, but not so many that you're, well, all you're doing is taking clips off while you're trying to sew it. Okay? Close together again. I have to stop myself. Would you like me to show you how to make pillowcases? I love doing them, and they're fun and they're easy, and I could do that next time. If you want, let me know in the show notes. You can also still vote in the silent one about which one I should do. Probably next fall for how to make a quilt and finishing a quilt. Got great plans for summer. You know, I'm doing this pin in here. Summer's going to be fun. I'm not going to say anything now, but I got a plan. And we'll announce that Memorial Day, just like we always do, Memorial Day weekend. Okay, so it's all pinned. All right? Then all you do once you've got it all pinned, you come around to your sewing machine and you just sew it. You put your leader in first so that you don't mangle the edge of your quilt. And you just sew that, and then when it's starting to get through, there we go, put your edge of your quilt right up against the edge there so that something's always under your needle, and then just sew straight down. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So straight down using your 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure your edges are lined up here really well. Okay, see your edges here? Want to make sure those are lined up really well. Keeping that tight so you don't get, so that you want to keep the quilt tight underneath so that it matches your border piece and it doesn't start rippling. You don't want ripples, because that makes it harder to quilt and lay out properly later. And they're all to be flat. So you just keep going. So if they're too close together, all you're going to be doing is clips. When you come to a seam when you come to a seam, see that seam right there? Okay, see there's a seam right there. When you come to the seam there and you've got this piece here, fold it over either way you want, or you can sew it open if you want. There's no right or wrong way. You just don't want it sticking up, obviously, and just, you want it as smooth as possible. So doing it that way tends to be a little, either way is smooth, but just make sure you're consistent and just make sure it's smooth. You want your border to be as smooth as possible. How many pieces did I cut? I wanted to make sure I had enough border, and although these are less, a strip is about 40 inches. And although, this is an 80-inch quilt, and so I wouldn't have needed 2 for each, I cut 8 just to be on the safe side, because I want to make sure, obviously at 64 inches, each one is longer than 40, so I wanted to make sure I had enough to go around all 4 sides, especially because when you do the top, when you do the sides on mine, because I have the longer side, you have to take into account that I just added a border on the top and bottom. So that's going to take more fabric. So I always cut 6 to 8 pieces when I sew my long strip for the border that I'm going to cut from. That way you're also not sewing and guessing where your border is. You're not sewing. Although, I guess if you did it each time, you would have your seam in the same place every time. I don't think I really like that. So as you're going around, my seam is going to be in different places where the pieces join, because I'm cutting a tad more than half of the next strip. So that's going to affect where the seam is on the next one. Okay? And you just keep going down. Okay? I'm hoping you can see the sewing a little better on this one, okay? I may have to figure out how to show the sewing. The next one, next legal quilt won't be on this quilt, but the one after that, so we'll do one in May, that is on, the second one in May will be on quilting this, which will still be paper, the quilt paper, but I just wanted to show you a little different design this time, and again go over how to do it. So that'll be the next one on this quilt. I'm still thinking what to do next time, although I got a lot going on that weekend, so it might have to be something simple. Always open to suggestions, folks. If you have an idea, let me know. All right. Just go ahead and put it in the comments on the show. I always love suggestions, polite suggestions. If you sew a slightly different way, let me know. Doesn't mean I'm wrong and you're right. Doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong. Just means you do it differently. But make sure you phrase it that way. I don't want to hear, you're doing it wrong. It's supposed to be done this way. No, there's no quilt police. We don't have right or wrong, except for the sides of the fabric. And even that, it's not the wrong side of the fabric. It's just the back side of the fabric. So when you get that done, all right, you just cut off your fabric and you remove your leader, because you don't want that floating around. It'll mess up the next step. Just toss that over with the other ones, and there you go. Your first border is sewn on, and you do the same thing on the bottom, or if you're doing side to side, you want the long top, you do it the other way, all right? You do your sides now, but there's your long, okay, there's how it's gonna look. All right, and you do the same thing on the bottom. Fold it in half, measure it, cut your thing, boom, you're done. Okay? Now you've got the top done. Oh, Let's get this one upside down. You've got the top done, and you've got your bottom done. Okay. Now you got to do the sides. Same thing. I'm not going to go through this whole process again, but I am going to show you the way to fold it. This is a little easier because you don't have to remember corners or anything. You've got your top border and your bottom border, and you just fold it together. I'm going to do it outside, right side out this time. Okay? All right. You just fold those together so that your borders meet, because that's your top and the bottom. So you're folding it so you can get the length of your sides. Okay? Fold it in half. Do the same thing. Measure it out. Okay? Measure it out. Cut your thing, pin it, sew it. Do the same thing on the other side, but that's it, okay? I'm not going to go through the whole thing because you just saw me do it once. But you do the same thing, except this is how you fold it. So those are together, okay? So that's it for this episode. I hope you learned a little bit about borders. The other thing is, again, if you have suggestions, technique you want to see me try, anything, let me know in the comments. Constructive suggestions, always welcome, but don't be rude, okay? There's no reason to be rude. If you don't like how I do something, there's other videos out there, okay? The main thing is there's no quilt police, and my show is for people who aren't going to be professional quilters. They're people who want to quilt for fun and relaxation, okay? So it's not going to be perfect, but there's no quilt police. The idea is to have fun. Quilting should be fun. Notice one of the hashtags I always use is quilting fun. Not quilting perfection, not quilting, this is the only way. Find a technique that works for you. That's also why I do a lot of different things is maybe you like Bargello, maybe you like strip piecing. I don't know. Find what works for you and enjoy it, okay? The other thing is, well, that's it. Like, share, comment. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Subscribers are always welcome. And don't forget, if you want to support me making these videos, you can, there's a Ko-fi thing on there. If you want to buy some stuff, there's up on the website. I still got to add some stuff. I got really behind again because of everything that was going on. So please, if you know, go buy some stuff if you want. If you want to support but not buying, you can go buy me coffee, and that'll be in the show notes. If not, and so that's it for this time. See you next time.